Christmas Eve was supposed to be magical. Streets glittered with lights, the smell of roasted yam and fried plantain mingling with pine from the Christmas trees in every home. Children laughed, couples held hands, and the city thrummed with hope and warmth. But for Amara, the night was a battlefield of shattered dreams. Hours before midnight, she had walked out of her boyfriend's mansion, her heart splintered, her tears staining the silk of her red dress. He had dumped her. Coldly. Publicly. Right in front of the family gathering she had been invited to, as if to humiliate her for daring to love him. Her cheeks burned, not from the cold Lagos wind, but from the sting of betrayal. As she wandered the streets, the laughter of others felt like a blade against her ribs. She didn't notice the rich, unfamiliar car slowing beside her until a deep voice broke the silence. "You shouldn't be out here alone tonight." She looked up. The man behind the tinted window exuded a calm power, tall, impeccably dressed, a billionaire in every sense, yet somehow, human. His eyes, sharp but not cruel, seemed to see straight through the chaos inside her. Something in her chest tightened, a mix of fear, confusion, and curiosity. The wind carried the distant chime of church bells, announcing midnight, but for Amara, time had stopped. The cold city suddenly felt like a trap. She had no place to go, no family waiting, no lover to run to. And the man in the car? He offered her a ride, a refuge, but not out of charity. There was an edge to him, a hidden challenge, a promise of something dangerous and exhilarating. As the car glided past the neon lights of Victoria Island, memories of the man who had broken her returned with brutal clarity. Every laugh they had shared, every secret whispered, every promise, all now poisoned. Her hands trembled as she gripped her purse. She vowed silently, he would regret this. Every second of humiliation. Every tear. The car stopped at a luxurious penthouse, its golden lights cutting through the night like a beacon. She stepped inside, feeling the warmth, the opulence, a world she had never imagined touching. And the billionaire? He didn't speak, didn't offer explanations, didn't judge. Instead, he simply observed, as if waiting for her to reveal the storm she carried within. Amara realized something then: revenge wasn't just a thought. It was a fire. And tonight, with this man, she could ignite it. She didn't know exactly how, or what she was willing to risk, but the idea of striking back at the one who had abandoned her, of using circumstances to reclaim her pride, made her pulse race. Minutes passed like hours. Outside, Lagos pulsed with celebration; inside, the air thickened with tension. The billionaire finally spoke, not words of comfort, but a proposition. Something unspoken, dangerous, and irresistible. A path that could change everything. Her heart raced, not just with desire or fear, but with the taste of a plan that could dismantle the man who had hurt her. And just as she thought she had control, just as the thought of revenge calmed the chaos inside her, the unexpected happened. A familiar laugh echoed from the balcony. He was there. The very man who had dumped her. Standing casually, unaware that his betrayal had set the stage for a reckoning he would never see coming. Amara froze. Her chest heaved. The billionaire beside her. Calm, composed, and smiling in a way that made it clear, he had been expecting this. And in that moment, the first spark of a twisted, intoxicating plan began to take shape. Micro cliffhanger: would Amara confront him? Or would she let fate and the billionaire's plan do the talking? Before we dive into the next chapter, remember, like and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Turn on notifications. The storm is just beginning, and you don't want to miss it. The billionaire's eyes never left Amara as the man who had broken her earlier that night stepped closer. Lagos festive lights flickered across the room, throwing long shadows that danced on the walls like secrets waiting to be revealed. Amara felt her heart hammering, not just from fear, but from the intoxicating sense of power she now realized she held. The man who had dumped her, oblivious to her plan, laughed again. He had no idea that Amara had already chosen her path. His arrogance had always been his armor, but tonight, it was the very thing that could be used against him. She felt the thrill of revenge ripple through her, a cold, sweet satisfaction blooming in her chest. The billionaire beside her remained quiet, his gaze steady, almost calculating. He didn't rush her, he allowed her the space to decide how far she would go. And in that pause, she realized, he wasn't just a bystander. He was a partner in her storm. Her mind raced, could she trust him? Could she risk herself in a game so dangerous, so unpredictable? Amara's eyes scanned the room. Every luxury screamed of power, the golden chandeliers, the polished marble floors, the city skyline glittering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. But tonight, opulence felt different. It was a weapon, a stage, and she was about to use it. The realization was electrifying. Outside, the city's Christmas Eve celebrations carried on, unaware of the silent battle unfolding inside the penthouse. Amara's ex-boyfriend had no inkling that his life was about to twist into chaos. She imagined the shock on his face when he discovered that the woman he had discarded was now armed with influence, strategy, and a billionaire ally whose motives she had yet to fully understand. Time slowed. The billionaire handed her a glass of champagne, not to celebrate, but as a quiet signal, the game begins now. Amara's fingers trembled as she took it. The bubbles tickled her skin like tiny reminders of her plan, her control, and the inevitable confrontation that awaited. She realized she had to play her cards carefully. One wrong move, and her heart, and pride, could shatter completely. She recalled every humiliation, every whispered insult, every slight he had ever inflicted. Each memory was a fuel that now burned hotter than the Christmas Eve fire. And yet, beneath the fury, a strange tension hummed. The billionaire's presence was magnetic, a mixture of danger and security. For the first time in months, she felt alive. Not helpless, not discarded, but alive in a way that promised something more, maybe revenge, maybe power, maybe even desire. The moment stretched. And then, as if fate itself were mocking her, her ex-boyfriend's gaze landed directly on her. Recognition, confusion, and something else flickered across his face, curiosity, perhaps fear. The realization hit Amara like a storm, he hadn't expected her to rise. He hadn't expected her to seize the night, to rewrite her story. And in that instant, she knew the first step of her plan was complete. Micro cliffhanger, but the billionaire whispered a single word, one that made her pause, heart skipping a beat. The word promised danger, power, and a secret she hadn't yet uncovered. Could she handle the truth, or would it consume her completely? Before we move forward, don't forget, like and subscribe so you won't miss Chapter 3. Turn on notifications. The real storm is coming, and every second counts. The word lingered in Amara's mind like a shadow that refused to leave. She could feel the tension curling around her like smoke. The billionaire didn't speak again, but his presence alone was enough to remind her, this night wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was bigger, deeper, and far more dangerous than she had imagined. Her ex-boyfriend, still standing in the doorway, shifted uncomfortably. Pride, arrogance, and disbelief warred across his face. He had never seen her like this, calm, poised, yet undeniably powerful. The realization that she had found an ally he could not understand, a billionaire friend whose intentions were wrapped in enigma, hit him like a thunderbolt. For the first time, he felt vulnerable. Amara's mind raced. She had to play her part carefully. One wrong glance, one misstep, and her carefully constructed plan could crumble. The pain of betrayal still burned inside her, but now it fueled a precision she had never known. Each heartbeat was a countdown, each breath a step closer to the moment she would reclaim control. The penthouse was quiet except for the soft hum of the city below and the distant jingle of Christmas bells. But within that silence, a storm was brewing. The billionaire moved slightly, a subtle gesture that made Amara's pulse quicken. He was letting her lead, but she knew better than to underestimate him. There was strategy in his patience, power in his calm. She had to decide how far she was willing to go, and whether she could trust him with a secret she wasn't ready to confront. She imagined the humiliation her ex-boyfriend would face if the truth of the night unfolded. The thought sent a thrill through her veins. He had discarded her as if she were nothing, and now she held the power to upend his life entirely. She could see it, the shock, the regret, the panic, all written across his handsome, arrogant face. Yet beneath that desire for vengeance, a whisper of doubt crept in. Could she handle the consequences of a plan this bold? Amara's gaze fell on the city skyline, glittering like scattered jewels. Each light seemed to reflect a choice she had to make. Her heart beat faster. This wasn't just revenge. It was transformation. A reclamation of everything he had tried to take from her, her pride, her dignity, her future. The billionaire's silent confidence beside her reminded her that she was not alone, that power could be wielded carefully and dangerously if she dared. Minutes stretched. The tension was almost unbearable. Then, without warning, her ex-boyfriend stepped closer, trying to regain the upper hand, trying to assert dominance he no longer possessed. But Amara didn't flinch. She had changed. She was no longer the girl who had cried in the rain, abandoned and humiliated. Tonight, she was untouchable, armed with cunning and allies who could turn the tables at any moment. Micro cliffhanger, and then, as the clock neared 1 a.m., the billionaire's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression unreadable, then leaned toward Amara and whispered a single sentence that made her stomach drop. This secret, one she had not anticipated, could shatter everything she had planned, or elevate her revenge to heights she had never dreamed. Amara's pulse raced. Every instinct screamed caution, but every fiber of her being ached for justice, for the reckoning she had imagined all these months. The city's distant fireworks heralded the hour, but inside the penthouse, the fireworks were nothing compared to the tension that crackled between her, the billionaire, and the man who had dared to discard her. Before we continue, remember, like and subscribe so you won't miss Chapter 4. Turn on notifications because the storm is about to explode, and you don't want to miss a single twist. The billionaire's whispered secret hung in the air like a thundercloud ready to burst. Amara's heart raced, and for the first time, she felt a shiver of fear mix with excitement. This wasn't just about revenge anymore, it was about power, exposure, and a truth that could change everything. Her ex-boyfriend's arrogance faltered. He still thought he controlled the night, still believed she was vulnerable, still believed she could be intimidated. But Amara had already stepped into a new world, one where she held cards he couldn't see, where allies moved in shadows, and where consequences would fall on the one who had hurt her most. The billionaire's presence was magnetic. He moved through the penthouse like a predator and protector rolled into one, silent but commanding, his calm energy amplifying her confidence. Amara realized she had never felt so alive, so untouchable, so capable of orchestrating something remarkable. She could almost hear her own heartbeat echoing in the polished marble hallways, a rhythm that matched the intensity of the plan forming in her mind. Outside, Lagos pulsed with Christmas Eve celebration, fireworks lighting up the sky, music echoing in every street. But inside, the penthouse was a stage for a far more dangerous performance. Amara's ex-boyfriend took a step closer, attempting to assert dominance, to regain the ground he had lost. But she remained steady, eyes locked on his, her mind racing. He had underestimated her resilience, her intelligence, her ability to turn betrayal into power. The billionaire leaned closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. It wasn't an intimate gesture, but a signal, a reminder that she was not alone in this game, that together, they could manipulate every move, every emotion, every glance. Amara understood, this wasn't about romance. It was about strategy, revenge, and claiming the narrative of her own life. Micro cliffhanger, then, a knock at the door interrupted the moment. A courier stepped in with a small, sealed envelope. The billionaire glanced at it, his eyes narrowing, and handed it to Amara. Her hands shook as she tore it open. Inside was a photo, a photo of her ex-boyfriend, not with anyone else, but in a situation that could destroy him socially, financially, and emotionally. The realization hit her like lightning. The game had already started, and the billionaire had orchestrated the first move. Amara's mind whirled. Every humiliation he had caused her, every lie, every betrayal, was about to come back full circle. She could almost hear the echoes of his arrogance cracking under pressure, hear the whisper of regret that would soon consume him. And in that moment, she understood the full power of her position, and the danger it carried. The clock ticked closer to 2 a.m., the city below oblivious to the drama unfolding above. Amara's fingers tightened around the envelope. Her pulse raced with anticipation, fear, and exhilaration. She had expected revenge, but not with such precision, not with such a partner in the shadows, not with the stakes so high. And then, as she looked at her ex-boyfriend, the billionaire finally spoke, his voice low and deliberate. "Are you ready for the next step?" Amara's chest tightened. The next step would push boundaries, break rules, and put her own heart on the line. But the thought of allowing him to continue thinking he had power over her, that thought alone sent a surge of determination through her veins. She was ready. Big cliffhanger. As the billionaire's plan unfolded before her eyes, Amara realized that revenge was no longer enough. She wanted more: exposure, dominance, and perhaps, a new life where the man who had discarded her would never dare touch her again. But at that moment, another unexpected figure appeared on the balcony, silhouetted by the fireworks. Someone she never expected, someone who could change everything. Before we continue, don't forget, like and subscribe so you don't miss Chapter 5. Turn on notifications. The storm is about to get explosive, and the twists are only just beginning. The figure on the balcony stood in shadow, framed by the city's Christmas fireworks. Amara froze for a heartbeat, her pulse pounding like a drum. She had expected many surprises that night: the billionaire's secret, the envelope, the realization of power over the man who had dumped her, but this? This was something she had never anticipated. The silhouette stepped forward. It was her ex-boyfriend's sister, someone who had always admired her quietly but had resented his arrogance. Her expression was unreadable, but in her hand was another envelope. Amara's heart skipped. More secrets. More leverage. This night had become a chessboard, each move more dangerous than the last. The billionaire's eyes glinted, his calmness unnerving. He had orchestrated everything so far, guiding her without a word, letting her feel in control while subtly manipulating the pieces. Now, the stakes had risen. Amara realized fully, this wasn't just about revenge. It was about transformation. She was no longer the girl discarded on Christmas Eve. She was a force. Her ex-boyfriend's face drained of color as she handed him the envelopes one by one. Inside, he found photographs, financial records, and evidence of lies he had told to protect his image. Every humiliation he had inflicted on Amara was mirrored back tenfold. Pride, arrogance, control, all slipping through his fingers. And Amara, watching him crumble, felt a surge of triumph tempered with satisfaction. The billionaire stepped closer, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. Not a gesture of ownership, but of partnership. Together, they had rewritten the rules of the night. Together, they had shown that betrayal could be turned into power, and that resilience, intelligence, and courage could outmatch arrogance and cruelty. Amara looked at him, a flicker of gratitude and curiosity in her eye. She had entered this night seeking revenge, but she was leaving with something much more valuable: understanding her own strength, her ability to influence outcomes, and the realization that she didn't need anyone to validate her worth. Not the man who had abandoned her, not society, not anyone. The fireworks exploded outside, casting light across the penthouse. She felt a strange sense of closure. The man who had dumped her was broken, but she didn't gloat. The satisfaction was in the transformation, in the reclaiming of her dignity. The billionaire's quiet smile reminded her that some victories were not loud, they were calculated, deep, and enduring. Micro cliffhanger, but resolved. as the clock struck 3 a.m., Amara walked to the balcony. The city glittered below, alive with celebration. She realized the ultimate lesson of the night: betrayal does not define you, your response does. Power is not in hurting others, but in rising above, in taking control, and in ensuring that no one can ever diminish your light again. The billionaire, standing beside her, didn't speak. He didn't need to. The look in his eyes said it all: respect, admiration, and an unspoken promise, a partnership born not of love, not yet, but of trust, strategy, and shared victory. And as Amara gazed at the stars, a final twist settled over her heart. Revenge had given her freedom, but freedom had given her choice. She could choose to rebuild, to love again, to embrace life fully, on her terms. And for the first time in months, she smiled not out of malice, but out of strength, empowerment, and hope. The night was over. The storm had passed. And the girl who was dumped on Christmas Eve had emerged not broken, but unstoppable. Final reminder for viewers: if you enjoyed this story, don't forget, like and subscribe so you won't miss more thrilling African stories. Turn on notifications because the next story could be even bigger, more dramatic, and more intense.